Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chesswise. Today we are at the next topic. We are going to discuss a game here, a game about weaknesses and two well-placed knights as it turns out later on. There are many positional factors involved in this game. Let's get to the game quickly and see what happens. D4, NF6, so-called the beginning of Indian defenses. After D4, NF6 there are many Indian defenses which are possible. After the move C4, G6 can be King's Indian or Grunfeld defense. E6 can lead to Nimzo Indian defense. There is Benoni with C5 and there are some other openings as well. Here black goes with the move E6, trying to go bishop b4 next move, which is what happens. Here Nimzo, which is black, he was one of the greatest players who couldn't become a world champion. We see how he handles the game. Knight C3, bishop b4, NF3. Not one of the main lines. Main idea of bishop b4 is to double the pawns on the c5, and later on black tries to play c5 and use the c file for his rook to put pressure on these double pawns. This is one of the initial games, so we see that white is not playing the best of his moves, but this shows the potential of this opening and we learn a great deal from this game. Instead of NF3, the main lines are A3, QC2, E3. Some people also prefer the move Bg5. NF3 simply allows black to go with his plan. Black takes bishop c3, bc, and he plays the move d6, not d5. d5 will allow white to undouble his pawns. Black's plan is simple. He has given up the bishop for the knight and he wants to close the center and then play c5 and put pressure on c4. We will see how. White goes queen c2 with the idea of e4. Queen e7, if e4, then black gets e5. He gets first share of the center. The f1 bishop remains somewhat bad. The knight can go to c6 and then a5. This bishop mainly finds itself on the a6 square after b6. So knight on a5, bishop on a6, all the pieces try to attack the c4 pawn. Bishop a3, stopping e5. e5 is just made by de5. Pawn cannot take because queen is attacked. Queen cannot take because knight protects. Black goes c5. This is one of his main ideas anyways, stopping the c pawn from moving. And then as I said, knight c6, knight a5. White goes for a very strange setup. He should have gone for e4, bd3 or even e3, bd3 castle. White goes for the move g3. Here the bishop is unable to do much because of black's proper play. Black goes b6, bg2, bb7, castle. So far things have actually moved in favor of black. White has the bishop pair, so black wants to close the center and he wants to start the maneuvering of his knights. White here plays a very mistimed move, we can say. He goes with the move knight h4. Not only the move knight h4 is somewhat inferior, the continuation which white does, that makes the position very bad, and we can say the position almost begins to collapse soon. Bishop g2, king takes g2. This happens to be one of the worst moves because if he would have played knight g2, then after e4, knight could have at least come on e3 and it would have gained some control over the center. This knight on h4 has become misplaced now. As we know the saying, knight on rim is dim. qb7 check. Now this queen is all set to do the bishop's duty. What bishop does from a6, queen will do. It will attack the c4 pawn, then knight c6, knight a5, rook c8 followed by cd and winning the pawn on c4. This is a very standard and simple plan which black is aiming at. This Nimzo Indian defense became so dangerous weapon for black that white players started avoiding it with the third move nf3 and not going hg3. So there was such a phase in the history of chess. Here white went kg1. Again bad move, still knight f3 was decent. Note that f3 can allow g5 when this knight will get trapped. Queen d2 can be trapped, but black can just do h6. kg1, queen a6, attacking the bishop and c4. qb3 forced, knight c6. Things have become really bad for white now. If dc5 then bc5, situation will be far worse. Threat will be rook b8 when queen moves and the bishop is lost. So this position is again very bad. Bishop has to move, then rook b8 and we see that c4 would be gone. White goes rook f d1, knight a5, very nicely timed. Of course, black had seen the move q b5. So white is not going to gain the pawn instantly, but now we see the power of knights, how these knights start dominating the central squares. c4, d5, e5, e4, all of them gradually fall into black's hand. Queen takes b5, c takes b5, knight c4. The reason this game is a masterpiece is that it is not just about one topic or one concept. We see now 5-6 concepts playing in black's favor. First, knight occupies the strong square on c4. Strong square is a square which cannot be attacked by enemy pawn. Second, the bishop on c1, which is now forced to go to c1, is a partly bad bishop here. So we see the concept of bad bishop. And soon black is going to play the move a6, which will open the a file, and we will see the control of open file and doubling of rooks on the open file. So multiple factors play major role, plus the knight's dominance in the center. Bishop c1 forced a6, b takes a6, rook takes a6, dc5, then just bc5. We see that d6 is nicely protected. This is the problem with the bad bishop. It only controls the squares which his pawns are controlling. So the other color totally falls into enemy's hand. Like knight will come to d5, knight will go to e4, and this bishop will just do nothing about it. And now white goes knight g2, trying to get his knight perhaps to the e3 square and trade this dangerous knight. But it's already too late. Black goes knight d5, threatening the c3 pawn. Can't play knight e3 because of just knight c3. Rook d3, protecting the pawn on c3. Rook f8. We can see that all black moves are coming naturally, and whatever tactics white tries to do, it only backfires. See the strong positioning of the knights here. White went e4, almost forced. A pawn cannot be pushed. On a3 it is simply lost. So now comes knight e5. Tactical finish, we can say, to a perfectly timed positional game. Rook is forced to leave the third rank when c3 would be lost. Not only that, a2 will be lost. Soon e4 will also fall into black's hand. White goes rook d1, knight takes c3, rook is running away, pillar to post. If rook e1, then so rook f1 forced. Here knight f3 check is very good, but black first uses an intermezzo. Rook a2, forcing rook a2, then knight f3 check, king h1, rook takes a2. And here white chooses to resign. It's perfectly understandable. e4 cannot be defended. After knight e4 there will be further torturous knight f2 and all, and soon white will be 3 pawns down. So we would say that it was a perfectly played positional play by Nimzowitsch with attacking touches at the end of the game. I hope you will find the lesson useful and instructive. Thanks for your time.